Hello. Today we're going to look at 5 levels for major scale playing on the guitar. Playing scales on the guitar is something which is unavoidable if you play long enough. You can try as you might to do as much as you can with your ear, but it helps to have your brain know where your fingers should go as well. So practicing scales is a great thing. And sometimes you can get caught up just in the scale patterns that someone showed you once or a teacher gave you sometime. So there will be no irony today when me as a teacher show you some different ways to play scales or some ways to think about them on the fretboard. So what's the goal with scales? Well, I think it's so that you can comfortably and easily navigate to notes on the fretboard that you know should sound good. And then you use your ear to fill in what actually sounds good against the backing track, and there's other theory beyond that too, which is we're not looking at today. The idea is to turn this Rubik's Cube of a fretboard into something that we can look at and go, yes, I know where I am, I know what's possible, and I know how that fits in with what I'm playing over. So let's take a look at the level 1 major scale. Now I always think the very first level that we have to learn with major scales is being able to play a single string scale, which is funny because actually a lot of people who can play full major scales, they struggle with single string scales. And so level 1 might seem like something new, even if you can play a major scale in a different way on the guitar. But I always think seeing the major scale laid out on a single string is really important, and there's a whole bunch of other things about it we'll talk about in a second. So when we're playing major scale on the guitar, obviously we've got the notes, and I could play 1 octave, so we'll do it in G. So G. Now it's not enough for me to be able to just play it and memorize where the tab, kind of the notes are in frets. I need to know what the functions of those are. And by function I mean, okay, well, G is the root, that's a 2. I'm less concerned about knowing that's an A, although it is an A, than I am knowing it's the second of the scale and that it was 2 frets up. So I went 0, 2, then we had 4, 4th fret, but I need to know that's a 3rd. So we've got root, 2, 3, 4. I'm on the 5th fret, playing a C note, but I don't care that it's the 5th fret. I don't really care that it's a C note, but I do care that it's the 4th note of that scale and how it relates to the rest of it, so that I know that it's 5 frets above the root. Got a 5th, a 6th, a 7th, and a root. And so a really good exercise when you're playing through this, just to work on them, is to be able to say your note function out loud as you play. Root 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, root 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, root. And we should be able to do that same pattern anywhere we can find a G note on the guitar. So if I do the same thing, I find my G note on fret 3 of string 6, it's the same pattern. If I do G, the 8th fret of the B string, if I do the 3rd fret of the 1st string, we've got the same as we had before. Okay, and not only ascending, you should be able to do descending as well. So if I start on a high G note, I should be able to start on a high G note, descend, get comfortable with those single string scales, and make them sound nice, even if we're just going up and down at this point. All right, let's take a look at level 2. So level 2, if we're working on just kind of pure scales up and down for the moment, then level 2 I would consider over 2 strings. So being able to play that G major scale or any major scale off a root over 2 strings. So what does that look like? What that means is we play our first 4 notes on 1 string, and then the last 4 notes, because we go all the way up to the octave, on another string. So that looks like this. So you can begin to see, there goes root 2, 3, 4, still thinking about note function the whole time, and then the 5th jumps up to here. So that same note is in two places. We've got a D note on the 10th fret, which is our 5th of the G, and we also have the same note on the 5th string on fret 5, and so we can make that jump. And that happens anywhere that we go on the guitar, except for one place, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So if I go to my G note here, same pattern on the 4th string. Now, the one place where it doesn't work, the pattern changes slightly, is G to B string. But that's true of all ways when we go G to B string, because the B string is our nemesis. It's not really. The B string isn't really our nemesis, but it is tuned slightly different to the rest of the guitar. So we do need to pay a bit more attention when we think about it. And as we go up, we have to go 1 fret higher than we would normally when moving between strings. So, but once we've done the string change, once you've negotiated where that note is, it's all good. So don't forget to also go descending with this. So level 3 scales, this is crossing all the strings. So I won't spend too much time on this because this is what most people do when they learn scales in the first place. They start on what I consider to be level 3 for those scales. There's two main options that people use to cross all those strings. They either use closed position, or they're sometimes called caged shapes, or they learn open position, which is often called 3 notes per string. Now, which one at this point doesn't really matter. It's just being able to cross those strings. What I want to talk about is whichever one you've learnt or are learning, the important thing is the same as the first 2 levels. Being able to see that note function. So being able to see where's my root, where's my 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's what gets lost often when you just learn the scale shapes up and down. People just learn these patterns, but they can't see where the note function is when they do it. And so that's a really important piece to work through, and that's why I like working with level 1 and level 2 first, because when you move to those level 3 scales, you're already thinking, okay, where's my root, where's my 2, where's my 3, and you're kind of seeing the guitar as I think it should be, especially if you want to improvise later on and do stuff. I must also say at this point that I was incredibly guilty of learning scale patterns without being able to see note function for a long time, and that doesn't lead to good sounding music. So I implore you, work through the levels. It's really helpful. Level 4 is a bit of a continuation of level 3. We're still working on the major scale, we're still crossing all the strings, but now we want to be able to not just cross the strings and go down this way, we want to be able to move our hand up the guitar as well. So what that means is, if I'm able to play the notes of G major, starting on the G note here. Well, G major is just the notes G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and G. Well, if I start on the A note and I do all the notes in this area of the guitar around the 5th fret, even though I haven't started on G note, it's still the G major scale. So you should be able to, the next step, and it's a bit of a big jump because it's bit to learn, but it takes a while, is to learn all 7 positions, because there's 7 notes in the scale, so you could start from 7 points, and then you've got the whole fretboard that you can play using the G major scale. And the nice thing about learning the G major scale, or any major scale, is that all the shapes are the same because we're on guitar. We're not on piano, where they have to learn different shapes for everything. We're on guitar. So that means that we can learn the patterns, and as long as we start on the root note for the scale, you're all good. So let's see what those are. So position 1, we've already done. That was the same as level 3. so there's 7 shapes. It takes a while to learn them, but it's worth the practice because your fingers, once they've practiced them enough, they do fall into some muscle memory with some of those shapes, even though in music we don't tend to play scales up and down all the time. There's some useful muscle memory in knowing them and seeing them, so it's worth it. Level 5. All right, level 5 is a bit of a jump. So level 5, I consider being able to find any root note of the scale anywhere and then build the scale off it over the adjacent 3 strings. So if I pick a G note here on string number 1 and I'm on fret 15, I should be able to go, okay, well that's my G note. Where's my 7? It's right there next to it. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now let's pick another G note somewhere. So I'm on fret 8 of string 2, and I'm on my first finger. So it's comfortable if I go, oh, I've got my G note here. Well, I've got my 7th here, the F sharp. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. So I think level 5 is really what we want with fretboard visualization, is the freedom to find a root note and then come out of it and see exactly what to play and where to play, rather than having to go, oh, what shape, what pattern am I on, where am I? But all the steps, all the levels help us go there, because, and this is only true because if you're thinking about root 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, as you're learning them. But if you learn them knowing where the note function is, you can build them, but also you can reverse engineer other people's guitar licks and all sorts of other useful stuff that maybe I'll go into in another video. Anyway, those are my idea of 5 really healthy levels, or really good levels, for learning scales on the guitar, the major scale in particular on this one. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you again next time. If you have any comments or things that you'd like me to do a deeper dive into, or questions, please leave them in the comment section below. If not, I'll see you next time. Thanks very much, guys.